The Stanford Prison Experiment made its theatrical debut in 2015. The film documented the infamous 1971 experiment in which 24 college students were imprisoned. The experiment was meant to run 2 weeks, but it was cut short after 6 days due to the psychological effects it was having on both the guards and the convicts. So, what exactly happened during the Stanford Prison Experiment? Why is it so infamous? And does the film get everything correct, or is it simply a dramatization? This video will provide a quick overview of the experiment, its impact on the field of psychology, and the criticism that it will face 45 years later. Hey everyone, it's Knowle, your gateway to understanding human behavior and emotions. Join us for fascinating insights. Hit subscribe for a part of our journey through the exciting field of psychology. So what is the Stanford Prison Experiment? Milgram's experiment shocked the field of psychology, leaving many individuals with doubts about compliance, power dynamics, and power abuse. Philip Zimbardo, a Stanford professor, wants to investigate these topics further. With a Navy grant, Zimbardo established the Stanford Prison Experiment. He wanted to investigate if a person's role influenced their behavior. Zimbardo and his team interviewed 70 Stanford hopefuls who agreed to participate in the 14-day study for $15 per day. They wanted to ensure that they selected the smartest and most mentally sound people. After narrowing down the applications to 24, the researchers tossed a coin to distribute the roles. Half of the participants would be inmates, while the other half would be guards. The researchers then put up a basement at Stanford to resemble a real prison. They were serious about approaching the experiment as a simulation. Prisoners were arrested in public and transported to prison. They were even booked, fingerprinted, and strip-searched. Zimbardo's team also assigned convicts numbers that were to be used instead of their true names. They believed that it would provide the prisoners a sense of anonymity and benefit the experiment. Guards had almost complete freedom in how they treated the detainees, with the exception of 2 major rules. They could not punch the prisoners, and they could not keep them in solitary confinement for more than an hour. Philip Zimbardo played the jail superintendent. His graduate students and research partners served on the parole board and as prison wardens. Prisoners were assigned specific tasks, such as sending a letter home to their visitors and presenting a case to the parole board for release. Guards also put the inmates to counts that required them to perform jumping jacks, push-ups, and other unpleasant chores. It didn't take long before these guards began to misuse their authority. Within 1 day, a guard struck one of the convicts with his nightstick. On the second day, the prisoners attempted to mutiny, so their beds were removed. To punish the convicts, the guard fired a fire extinguisher into their cell. Guards utilized physical and psychological abuse, including as sleep deprivation, to punish and intimidate captives. Throughout the study, the prisoners were required to wear bandages and stocking caps at all times, and the guards would occasionally place bags over their heads. Since the study's conclusion, it has been compared to acts at the Abu Ghraib Detention Center. Zimbardo has written about the case and its similarities to the jail experiment since. So, why was this experiment shut down? The guards rapidly began to abuse their power, and the convicts spiraled out of control. On the 3rd day, prisoner number 8612 began crying and screaming hysterically. He threatened to kill himself and contact a lawyer. To avoid any psychological harm or a lawsuit, he was released. 2 other convicts were released during the next 2 days, one of whom refused to eat. On the 5th day, Zimbardo's girlfriend, a former student, arrived to see the experiment. Zimbardo and his colleagues had been watching and participating in the experiment around the clock. When she saw the horrors going on in the prison, she begged Zimbardo to stop the experiment immediately. She even threatened to break up with him. On the 6th day, he concluded the experiment. This experiment demonstrated how rapidly people may abuse authority when given it, yet it remains one of the most contentious experiments in the field of psychology. There are several reasons why. The first one is obvious: the psychological abuse that the convicts suffered during the study. Is it ethical to subject human participants to such agony and trauma that many were unable to complete the experiment? Now, Zimbardo says that none of the subjects experienced long-term psychological repercussions, but the point remains. In recent years, critics have come up to claim that the results were not as natural as Zimbardo and his team may have led you to believe. Transcripts and audio recordings from the Stanford Prison Experiment reveal that Zimbardo's staff taught these guards, telling them to be tough for the sake of the experiment. Even the prisoners could have been fabricating their reactions. Prisoner number 8612, most remembered for his chilling comment, "I'm burning up inside," has come forward to claim that his stint in the Stanford County Jail was more of an improvisational exercise. Many reviewers have described the experiment as a play rather than a serious psychology experiment. Carlo Prescott, the experiment's jail consultant, has also come forward to claim that the most severe punishments were not organically devised and carried out by the guards alone. He wrote the following in an op-ed. Ideas such as bags being placed over prisoners' heads, inmates being bound together with chains, and buckets being used in place of toilets in their cells were all experiences of mine at the old Spanish jail section of San Quentin, which I dutifully shared with the Stanford Prison Experiment Brain Trust months before the experiment began. To claim that all of these properly tested, mentally sound upper-middle-class Caucasian guards came up with this on their own is ridiculous. So you may take that as you will. Let us now discuss the Stanford Prison Experiment's long-term impact. It seemed to have generated more questions than answers. Where should psychologists draw the line when it comes to causing volunteers grief for scientific purposes? And how easily do psychologists blur the distinction between an experiment, a simulation, and a drama? And if the Stanford Prison Experiment does not fully address its initial questions about power dynamics and obedience, what other experiments can? These are only a few of the questions that psychologists are asking today concerning the experiment. As we conclude, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you found value in this video and learned something new, and I look forward to seeing you in our future videos. I would deeply value it if you could like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support will help us to create more valuable content. What are the key takeaways from this video that you can share in the comment section?